Stephen, hello, sir. Thanks so much for kicking things off here. Not always the easiest thing to do, so I really appreciate this. Let's go ahead and take a look at your writing. Scan it, drop it into Photoshop, and adjust it to levels. That's smart. I mean, I sketch white, so I quite often find myself doing the same thing when I share sketches with clients through email and things like that. Sometimes I have a really super light hand when it comes to sketching, so I have to do the same thing. It's a good workaround. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay, now you say there's a trick trying to figure out the proper spacing between letters, especially at this size, and that's relevant. That's relevant because every time the type size changes, you have to take a closer look at the kerning between letters. That's the spacing between letters, and adjust those. So it suffices it to say that a typeface presented at a 14 point type size is going to be kerned quite differently than the exact same typeface presented at 64 type size or a display type size. So that's a relevant observation there. Let's go ahead and jump right over. All right, so Banana, good job with the baseline, mean line, and the cap line. One thing I would say is that try to get this baseline as level as possible, and it could possibly be the way that you photographed it or scanned it. But right now, this side is higher than this side, so it's throwing a little distortion into the mix here, which is okay. I can definitely work around that. But I'm going to say that yeah, for a perfect presentation, you want to make sure that's perfectly level. First thing we can start with is a perfectly level baseline. Okay. I think your letter forms are sketched out quite nicely. We've got a little bit of, and I'd like to see more contrast here. In other words, so maybe even use a marker to color in the interior fill of the letter forms. That points to contrast, and this will all make sense in coming weeks, the reason why we do this by hand. But for right now, just really concentrate on craft here. It's really super important. Your letter forms are done beautifully. I think you're the very, very high degree of consistency between the B's, the N's, and the A's, the multiple. I should say the A's and the N's, since those are the only examples of multiples. So good job there. Now, one thing I'm seeing is that it's like this, for example, this A right here is a lot larger than this A. We can see that clearly by the relationship to the mean line. Now, don't forget, we have what is called overshoot on curved letter forms. Overshoot is where the curved part extends above or below just a tiny bit below the baseline and the mean line and cap line if applicable. Now it's curved letter forms, and the reason it's an optical relationship that makes those curved letter forms appear. If we didn't overshoot, curved letter forms would look smaller. And again, it's an optical relationship, meaning that it is an illusion at the exact same type size. You're going to see overshoot on curved letter forms. Okay, pretty good letter spacing. I mean, it's as normal, I think, as could be. This space right here is a little bit large, but what you want to do at this point is you want to keep this general rule in mind. Okay, so kerning, specifically kerning sans serif typefaces. So the closest space would be the space between two curved letter forms. The next widest space after that would be the space between a straight and a curved letter form. And then the widest space would be the space between two straight letter forms. So work on that formula and lock that formula into memory, because that's a really great formula for kerning. A great place to start. Typically, you start with the hardest letter combination, which in this case, I would say the B and the A. Once you get that B and the A down, remember the two curved letter forms that are closest, then you do the kerning for two straight letter forms. And basically, at that point, you're done, because everything here either involves two curves or a curve and a straight. There's not two straights. If there was actually there are two straights between the A and the N. So that's relevant there, the A and the N right there too. So we've got that the relevant combinations here, and enough really to get you to really be able to take a look at this. Now, the reasoning behind optimal letter spacing is so that we are able to read the word as a word and not a series of letters. We have what are called saccadic eye movements in typography, and saccadic eye movements basically say that our mind wants to group things logically, okay? So right now, if you had a B-A-N and a kind of a little bit of a too large of a space between the N and the A, the mind would perceive it as banana, creating an additional stop and impeding the reasonable and expeditious flow of the letters for the mind to perceive banana as a word and not a series of letters. That's the relevance of letter spacing in Word, and the same principle holds true in series of words, in sentences, in paragraphs, etc. So that's why spacing is so important to typography. Okay, so those are my recommendations moving into your final submission for Sunday. And if you have any questions, or if I can clarify anything, please, you know the drill, right? Let me know. I'm really good about getting right back to you. So just let me know. All right, great job, and thanks for kicking things off. Thanks, Stephen.